Real power isn't feeling nothing. It's feeling everything and choosing your move anyway. One careless word, one sharp tone, one trigger, and your peace vanishes. That's not life. It's emotion hijacking your day. This book ends the takeover. 10 chapters teach you to pause, to sit in the fire without burning, to lead your storm instead of drowning in it. Master the silence. Reclaim the wheel. Become unbreakable. Chapter 1. The stillness within discomfort. There comes a moment in every life when silence feels heavier than noise. The heart beats faster, the body tenses, and every instinct whispers one thing: escape. We reach for distractions, for validation, for anything that numbs the unease inside us. Yet the truth we often run from is this: growth rarely feels gentle. It's quiet, uncomfortable, demanding. It's the stillness within discomfort that teaches us who we really are. We live in a world that glorifies motion, constant activity, constant noise, constant escape. The moment we feel anxious, we scroll. The instant we feel sad, we talk over it, eat over it, or move past it. But silence, real silence, is the mirror where our emotions finally show their true face. It's not punishment, it's presence. When you stop running, when you finally sit still, you meet the part of yourself that's been asking to be seen. Discomfort has a voice. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It says, something in you is ready to change. But change can't happen when you keep covering it up. True healing begins when you allow yourself to feel, not to analyze, not to escape, just to feel. Sit in that space where your body wants to move and your thoughts want to run. Sit there long enough and the noise begins to soften. Beneath the restlessness, there is something sacred: awareness. Awareness isn't comfort, it's clarity. It's the realization that the feelings that scare you are not your enemies. They are messengers. They are invitations. They arrive to show you what still needs your care. The sadness that lingers isn't weakness. It's a sign you've been ignoring a truth. The frustration you feel isn't chaos. It's your inner self asking for realignment. Discomfort isn't here to destroy you. It's here to wake you. You see, the mind loves control, but the soul seeks understanding. And understanding only comes when you stop reacting and start observing. Sit with your tension. Feel where it lives in your body. Maybe your chest, maybe your stomach, maybe your throat. Don't rush to fix it. Don't label it as good or bad. Just breathe into it. The act of staying, of being still, transforms everything. What you once feared begins to soften under the weight of your patience. The moment you stop escaping, you begin to hear yourself clearly. The stillness within discomfort becomes your greatest teacher. It shows you your patterns, your fears, your triggers. It reveals how quickly you chase relief instead of truth. And with that awareness comes choice. You realize that pain doesn't always need to be fixed. Sometimes it needs to be witnessed. When you can sit in discomfort and not break, not run, not lash out, you reclaim your power. Because that's the place where resilience is born. Not from avoiding hard moments, but from surviving them with grace. The calmest people aren't those who feel the least. They are those who've learned to stay present in what others run from. Stillness is strength disguised as surrender. It's saying, I trust myself enough to feel this fully. The longer you can stay with what's uncomfortable, the deeper your peace becomes. Because peace isn't found in the absence of struggle. It's found in the quiet acceptance that struggle is part of becoming. The next time life feels heavy, don't rush to distract yourself. Don't reach for the easy fix. Just stop. Breathe. Sit in that quiet tension that feels unbearable, and notice that you are still here. You're breathing. You're surviving. You're growing in the middle of what once terrified you. That's not weakness. That's transformation. When you learn to rest inside discomfort, you realize that emotions are like waves. They rise, they crash, and they fade. But you remain. You are the ocean beneath the tide, steady and vast. The waves don't define you, they only teach you how deep you go. So, the next time your heart races and your chest tightens, don't escape the moment. Enter it. Observe it. Let it teach you something about yourself that comfort never could. Because stillness in discomfort is not just about surviving emotion, it's about reclaiming ownership of your life. The strongest souls are not those who feel nothing, but those who can feel everything and still remain grounded. That's the quiet strength life is asking you to build. Not resistance, not perfection, just presence. The ability to stand inside the storm of your own emotion and whisper, "I am safe here." And as you keep practicing this, something begins to change. The fear that once dictated your reactions loses its power. The sadness that once consumed you turns into understanding. The chaos that once overwhelmed you becomes a rhythm you can breathe through. You start realizing that you were never meant to escape discomfort. You were meant to grow through it. That's the stillness within discomfort, the sacred space between fear and growth. It's the pause that reshapes your identity. It's where you stop asking, "How do I make this go away?" and start asking, "What is this here to teach me?" And when you live from that question, every difficult moment becomes a classroom. Every wave of emotion becomes a guide. Every silence becomes an act of healing. So be patient with yourself. Don't rush the stillness. Sit with it. Breathe into it. Let discomfort speak its truth. Because in the stillness, you will not find emptiness. You will find yourself. Chapter 2. The Power of the Pause. There's a split second between what happens to you and what you do next. It's so small that most people never notice it. Something triggers you, a tone, a message, a moment that stings. And before you even realize it, you're already reacting. Words spill out, emotions take over, and suddenly the situation controls you instead of the other way around. That small space, that fragile pause, is where your power lives. The pause is not silence, it's presence. It's the breath you take before you speak, the heartbeat between anger and understanding, the space between feeling hurt and deciding what kind of person you want to be in that moment. Most people move through life reacting. They live like a flame, touched by the smallest wind. But those who learn to pause live like steady light, calm, centered, deliberate. Pausing doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you start leading what you feel. Emotions are like waves. They rise quickly and crash hard, but every wave settles if you give it time. The pause allows your inner storm to pass before it becomes your behavior. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. When you practice the pause, you step out of survival mode and into awareness. You begin to see the difference between what your emotion wants right now and what your peace will need later. The emotion screams, "React now," but your peace whispers, "Wait." The pause gives you the chance to listen to the whisper instead of the scream. You might think strength is about acting fast, standing up for yourself, firing back, defending your point. But strength often looks like the person who can breathe, think, and walk away with peace still intact. It's easy to react. It takes grace to stay still. When someone disrespects you, when life tests your patience, when your emotions start to rise, remember, your reaction will shape the story more than the event itself. What you do in the pause decides whether you build peace or chaos. The pause doesn't just protect your relationships, it protects your energy. Think about how many times you've said something in anger and regretted it moments later. Think about how often you've sent a message too soon or made a decision too quickly. The pause could have saved you from that. It doesn't erase emotion, it gives you room to feel it fully without letting it drive you. And here's the truth, your mind will resist the pause. It will tell you that silence makes you weak, that not reacting means you don't care. But the opposite is true. The pause is power under control. It's choosing not to let temporary emotions make permanent damage. With time, the pause becomes second nature. You start recognizing your triggers before they take control. You feel the tension rise. You notice your heartbeat quicken. And instead of acting, you breathe. You let the emotion exist without obeying it. That's emotional maturity, not the absence of feelings, but the presence of choice. Every time you pause, you rewrite your story. You go from being someone controlled by reactions to someone guided by wisdom. That shift changes everything, your conversations, your confidence, your peace. The pause also creates respect, not just from others, but for yourself. You begin to trust your own calm. You start to realize that reacting isn't the same as responding. Reactions come from emotion, responses come from awareness. The pause is the bridge between the two. When you pause, you also learn to see others differently. You understand that not every comment needs correction, not every tone needs confrontation, and not every disagreement needs resolution right now. Some things don't need your reaction. They need your silence, your patience, or your distance. The pause gives you time to ask powerful questions. Is this worth my peace? Is this my ego speaking or my truth? Will my response heal or harm? That's the kind of inner dialogue that transforms ordinary moments into opportunities for growth. And yes, it takes practice. You'll fail sometimes. You'll react too fast. You'll say too much. You'll wish you had waited. But even those moments are teachers. Each time you recognize what you could have done differently, you're already changing. You're already becoming more aware. One day you'll notice how different you've become. You'll find yourself in a situation that used to trigger you, but instead of reacting, you'll just breathe. You'll smile quietly. You'll feel the same emotion, but you'll choose peace. And in that moment you'll realize how much power you've gained, not over others but over yourself. That's the power of the pause. It's where chaos meets control, where reaction becomes reflection, where emotion turns into strength. It's a skill that will change how you speak, how you lead, how you love. Because every pause is a choice. A choice to stay calm, a choice to stay kind, a choice to protect your energy instead of losing it to every passing moment. So the next time you feel the urge to react, stop. Take one breath. Let silence fill the gap. Let awareness step forward. Then, choose your next move with intention. The world may not slow down for you, but you can slow down for yourself. And that one pause, that single heartbeat of stillness, can change everything about the life you're creating. Chapter 3. The Quiet Battle with Pride. There's a moment inside each of us, a quiet but fierce spark, that flares up the instant we feel disrespected, ignored, or misunderstood. It's that sudden voice that says, "They can't talk to me like that." It's the tightening in your chest, the heat in your words, the impulse to defend what doesn't need defending. That, right there, is pride, subtle, powerful, and often mistaken for strength. Pride doesn't shout at first. It whispers. It tells you to protect your image, to prove your worth, to make sure nobody sees you as small. It wears a mask of confidence, but behind it lives fear, the fear of being unseen, unvalued, or forgotten. Pride promises control, but it quietly steals your peace. You can feel it when it starts. Someone challenges your opinion. Someone speaks carelessly. Someone fails to recognize your effort. And suddenly something inside you rises to speak. You want to respond, not to bring understanding, but to reclaim your position. Pride convinces you that silence means weakness. But the truth is, silence in that moment is often the purest form of power. The battle with pride is not loud. It's internal. It happens in the seconds before you reply, in the breath before your defense. You feel that pull, that need to say something, to explain, to prove. But deep down you know that pride's victories are short-lived. They leave you momentarily satisfied, but spiritually drained. Pride doesn't care about peace. It only cares about being right. It will push you to win arguments that don't matter, to fight battles that steal your calm, to prove points that no one remembers. It makes you forget that being respected isn't the same as being loud. True respect comes from restraint. When you start to recognize pride's voice, everything changes. You begin to notice how it rises like a reflex, how it makes your tone sharper, your words heavier, how it transforms moments of connection into competition. But awareness is the first victory, because when you see pride clearly, you no longer have to obey it. Sometimes walking away isn't losing, it's leadership. Choosing silence isn't giving up, it's growing up. There's incredible strength in saying nothing when your ego is begging to speak. That kind of discipline turns ordinary people into grounded souls. Ask yourself in those heated moments, why do I need to say this? Is it truth or is it pride? Most of the time you'll find it's pride wanting to protect an image that doesn't need protection. People rarely remember your silence, but they'll always remember when you lose control of it. The truth is, pride is fragile. It feeds on attention, on reaction, on validation. When you stop feeding it, it starves. And in that stillness, what remains is humility. Not weakness, but wisdom. Humility doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It means knowing who you are so deeply that you no longer need to prove it. Pride will tell you that backing down means losing. But peace will remind you that you don't need to win every conversation to win your life. Pride says, speak now or you'll regret it. Wisdom says, wait or you'll regret it. The more you choose wisdom, the quieter pride becomes. You'll notice over time that you don't need to respond to every challenge. You don't need to explain every decision. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. When you stop giving pride the microphone, your peace grows louder. There's beauty in that kind of calm. It doesn't demand attention, it commands respect. Because people can feel when someone is grounded. They can sense when a person's strength comes from inner certainty rather than outer defense. Pride thrives in the noise of reaction. Humility thrives in the quiet of understanding. The battle between them never truly ends. It's one you'll face for the rest of your life. But every time you choose peace over pride, you build something lasting. You build integrity, you build clarity, you build trust in yourself. And one day, you'll find yourself in a situation that once would have set you off. A rude comment, a dismissive glance, a careless word. But instead of reacting, you'll just breathe. You'll feel the emotion rise, but it won't move you. You'll smile gently, not because you're ignoring it, but because you've mastered the art of self-control. That's not silence born of fear, That's silence born of power. Remember, not every reaction deserves your voice. Some moments need your maturity more than your opinion. The world doesn't always need to hear your side. Sometimes it just needs to see your calm. When pride demands to be heard, answer with grace. When your ego wants to fight, answer with stillness. When you feel the urge to defend yourself, remind your heart that peace is the only victory worth chasing. Because pride might win the moment, but peace wins the life. Chapter 4. The freedom of being misunderstood. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is this: not everyone will understand you. No matter how kind you are, how honest you try to be, or how carefully you explain yourself, someone will still misread your silence, your choices, or your intentions. And that's okay. For much of our lives, we chase the comfort of being understood. We explain ourselves endlessly. We try to fix wrong assumptions, defend our character, and prove our worth to people who may never truly see us. But there comes a time, a liberating, life-changing time, when you realize that peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from understanding yourself. When you reach that point, you stop chasing validation. You stop wasting your voice on conversations that lead nowhere. You begin to see that people only understand you to the depth they understand themselves. Their interpretation of you says more about their perspective than your truth. There will always be those who twist your words, question your motives, or make you the villain in their version of the story. But you don't have to attend every misunderstanding. You don't have to fight every false image. The more you try to explain yourself to people who have already decided what to believe, the further you drift from your own peace. Letting others misunderstand you is not weakness, it's freedom. It's choosing your peace over your pride. It's knowing that your truth doesn't need constant defense to stay true. Some people aren't misunderstanding you by accident. They misunderstand you by choice, because it's easier for them to live with their version of events. You cannot heal what someone refuses to see. You cannot correct what they are committed to misreading. You can only let go, breathe, and walk your path with integrity. The moment you stop explaining, you start expanding. You stop being trapped in someone else's opinion and start living in alignment with your own. It's not your job to manage another person's perception. Your only job is to live with clarity, kindness, and consistency. Your truth will reveal itself in time, even if your words never do. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to prove your intentions to people who were never truly listening. The long messages, the late-night overthinking, the heavy heart that comes from feeling misunderstood. All of it drains your spirit. But when you step back and say, "I don't need them to understand me to be at peace," you reclaim your energy. You remind yourself that peace doesn't depend on agreement. It takes courage to let someone misjudge you. It takes maturity to walk away knowing that your character will speak louder over time than any explanation you could give today. And it takes faith. Faith that what is real will stand, and what is false will fade. Let people think what they want. Let them tell their story. You don't have to correct every version of your name that leaves their lips. You know your heart. You know your truth. You know your intent. And that is enough. You will find that the people who genuinely care will ask, not assume. They will listen, not label. They will approach you with curiosity, not conclusion. Those are the people worth keeping. The rest can misunderstand you in peace. The freedom of being misunderstood is not about indifference. It's about trust. Trusting that life will reveal what words cannot. It's about knowing that silence, when grounded in self-respect, carries more power than 1,000 defenses. There is a calmness that arrives when you stop trying to be the hero in everyone's story. You stop performing. You stop pleasing. You stop apologizing for how you exist. And in that calm, you find a version of yourself that is light, grounded, and free. Because when you let go of the need to be understood, you discover a new kind of clarity, the kind that doesn't depend on approval. You begin to live for alignment, not applause. You start focusing on living truthfully instead of being seen favorably. The truth is, some people will never understand your silence because they've never met peace within their own. Some will never understand your kindness because they confuse calm for weakness. And some will never understand your boundaries because they're used to your giving. But that's not your burden to carry. Let them think. Let them talk. Let them create their version. You keep walking in yours. Time has a way of revealing what words never could. The more you practice this, the lighter you'll feel. You'll start noticing that not every misunderstanding needs a response. Not every accusation deserves your energy. Some moments simply require distance, not to prove anyone wrong, but to protect what's right inside you. Chapter 5. When silence says more than explanation. There comes a time when words no longer serve you, when explaining yourself only drains your peace and defending your truth only feeds misunderstanding. That's when silence becomes your strength. Not the silence of retreat, but the silence of wisdom. A still, grounded space that holds more truth than any argument ever could. We live in a world that rushes to speak. Everyone has something to say, something to prove, something to clarify. But few have learned the art of restraint, the ability to pause, to breathe, to wait for calm before offering a response. Silence is not weakness. It is emotional maturity in its purest form. It says, I value my peace more than your opinion. When you choose silence, you're not giving up. You're stepping back into control. You're saying, I no longer feel the need to perform for understanding. You're allowing space for truth to reveal itself without the noise of reaction. Because words spoken in haste often build walls, but silence creates room for perspective. Think about the times you've rushed to explain yourself, how your words felt twisted, how the more you tried to clarify, the deeper the misunderstanding grew. Sometimes the louder we speak, the less we're heard. Silence, though quiet, speaks clearly to those willing to listen. Silence teaches timing. It reminds you that not every moment requires your voice. There is wisdom in knowing when to speak, and power in knowing when not to. Silence is not the absence of communication, it's the most deliberate form of it. It says, I've thought about this, and I choose peace over reaction. Silence also reveals character. It shows you who listens without words, who respects your calm, and who needs constant noise to feel connected. The people meant for you will never misinterpret your stillness. They'll understand it as clarity, not distance. There's a deep discipline in holding your silence when your emotions beg you to speak. It's not easy. Every part of you wants to explain, to correct, to make things right. But when you resist that pull, you strengthen your emotional boundaries. You remind yourself that not every battle is yours to fight. The power of silence lies in patience, in trusting that time, not argument, will reveal what's true. You don't need to force anyone to see your heart. You just need to live in a way that your actions tell the story. Eventually the noise fades, and the truth stands taller than any defense could have built. Silence also creates self-trust. You begin to believe in your own calm. You realize you don't need to speak to prove your worth or respond to validate your truth. You learn to let situations breathe, to let time do the explaining. and in that stillness peace grows. There will be moments when silence feels heavy, when the quiet feels misunderstood. People may mistake your calm for indifference. They may call your peace avoidance. But those who live in chaos often misread calm as cold. You can't change that. What you can do is stay rooted. Let your silence be the proof of your discipline, not the mark of your distance. Because silence has a language of its own. It says, "I'm strong enough not to react." It says, "I trust time to do what words cannot." It says, "My energy is too valuable to be spent on noise." You'll find that silence not only protects your peace, it sharpens your awareness. It helps you hear more, notice more, understand more. When you stop talking, you start observing. You start hearing what people mean, not just what they say. You start seeing where your energy is best spent and where it's being wasted. And over time, you begin to feel something shift inside you, a quiet power that no one can take away. You no longer rush to defend yourself. You no longer fear being misunderstood. You no longer chase the last word. You learn that true confidence doesn't announce itself. It simply exists. Silence isn't about closing off. It's about opening up inwardly. It's choosing reflection over reaction. It's creating a safe space between feeling and action, a space where you can breathe, observe, and decide from a place of clarity, not emotion. And when you finally do speak after silence, your words carry more weight. They are measured, intentional, and calm. Because silence purifies speech. It strips away ego and reaction until what remains is truth. Remember this: noise demands attention. Silence earns respect. Anyone can speak in chaos, but only the grounded can stay quiet in it. So the next time you feel the pull to explain yourself, pause. Ask yourself, is this conversation helping, or am I just trying to prove my point? If the answer leads you back to peace, stay silent. If speaking only feeds the tension, let silence do the talking. The world doesn't need more words. It needs more awareness. It needs people who know when to step back, when to listen, and when to let silence speak for them. Because silence, when chosen with intention, isn't emptiness. It's strength under control. It's the calm voice of someone who no longer needs to be understood by everyone, only by themselves. And that is where peace begins. Chapter 6. The gap that changes everything. There's a moment that decides the quality of your life. A small, quiet gap between what you feel and what you do next. It's a pause so brief that it often slips away unnoticed. Something happens. A harsh word, a disappointment, a memory that stings, and within seconds, emotion floods in. Anger rises, hurt sharpens, fear tightens your chest. And before you realize it, the feeling becomes the action. You react. You speak, you move, you regret. But somewhere in that sequence, there is space. The space where your power lives. The gap between the emotion and the reaction. The place where you can choose something different. That space is where peace begins. It's the heart of self-control, the birthplace of wisdom. When you learn to find it, to hold it, to breathe inside it, everything changes. Emotions are fast. They surge like lightning, moving through your body before your mind catches up. But awareness slows everything down. The moment you become conscious of what you're feeling, you take back your power. You stop being a passenger in your own experience and become the driver again. Imagine this: something triggers you. Your first instinct is to speak or act. Instead, you pause. You take one breath. You notice the feeling without judgment. Anger, sadness, fear. Whatever it is, You name it quietly and allow it to exist. You don't resist it, you don't obey it, you just observe. That small act, awareness, builds a bridge between the old pattern and a new possibility. Because here's the truth. Emotion itself isn't the problem. It's natural to feel. The problem is when emotion leads without permission. When you create a gap, you give yourself permission to lead it instead. That's what emotional maturity really is. Not the absence of feelings, but the presence of space. The ability to let your emotion pass through you without letting it make your choices for you. At first, this feels unnatural. You'll notice how strong the urge is to respond right away, to release the tension. But if you stay inside the gap, if you breathe through the discomfort, the energy begins to shift. The emotion that felt unbearable starts to soften. The longer you hold that space, the clearer your mind becomes. And in that clarity, you see things differently. You see that anger often hides hurt, that fear often masks uncertainty, that sadness often speaks of unmet needs. Without the gap, you would have acted on the surface feeling. With the gap, you see the truth beneath it. Every time you find that space, you train your mind to pause before it decides. You build a pattern of awareness that eventually becomes instinct. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding intentionally. The difference seems small, but it changes everything. Your relationships, your peace, your entire way of living. It's in that gap that apologies are saved, conflicts are avoided, and regrets are prevented. It's where empathy replaces ego. It's where patience replaces pride. The gap is also where healing happens. When you stop reacting, you start feeling. You begin to hear what your emotions are really trying to tell you. Sometimes the anger you feel isn't about this moment. It's about old pain you never gave yourself permission to feel. Sometimes your defensiveness isn't about being attacked. It's about fearing rejection. The gap gives you enough stillness to see that. That's why the pause isn't weakness. It's intelligence. It's emotional honesty. It's how you begin to lead your inner world with awareness, instead of letting it lead you through impulse. But here's the beautiful part. You don't have to hold that gap forever. You only need a few seconds. One deep breath. One heartbeat of awareness. That's often enough to change the course of your reaction, to shift the outcome, to save your peace. Every time you find that gap and choose calm over chaos, you strengthen your self-trust. You start believing in your ability to stay steady, even when the world is loud. That belief becomes confidence, not loud confidence that needs validation, but quiet confidence that comes from knowing, I can handle this. With time, the gap widens. The pause between feeling and reacting becomes natural. What used to shake you now barely stirs you. What used to drain you now teaches you. You stop rushing through your emotions and start walking through them with grace. That's when life feels different, not because the world changed, but because you did. The same challenges arrive, but they no longer control you. You start responding with intention, not instinct. You begin to feel more grounded, more patient, more free. Because the truth is, peace isn't the absence of emotion. Peace is the mastery of space between emotion and response. It's knowing that you don't have to say everything you think, feel everything you fear, or act on everything that hurts. You have room to choose. So the next time emotion rises fast, don't fight it, slow it down. Find that invisible gap between what you feel and what you do. Step into it like a doorway. Breathe, wait, listen. And when you finally move, Move from peace, not pressure. That one decision, that single heartbeat of awareness, might just change the entire course of your day, your relationships, and eventually your life. Chapter 7. Guarding your energy in a loud world. The world today moves fast, too fast for most hearts to keep up. There's always something demanding your attention: messages, opinions, expectations, noise. Everyone wants a piece of you, and without realizing it, you give yourself away. A little here, a little there, until there's barely enough left for you. Guarding your energy is not about isolation, it's about wisdom. It's about knowing what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Because your energy is your life force. It fuels your thoughts, your emotions, your peace, your purpose. When it's scattered, everything feels heavy. When it's protected, everything feels clear. You can feel when your energy begins to leak. It's the moment when your mind won't quiet down after a conversation that left you uneasy. It's when you keep replaying words you wish you hadn't said. It's when you scroll endlessly, feeling emptier with every swipe. That's the world pulling you away from yourself. Guarding your energy starts with awareness. Ask yourself often, where is my attention right now? Because whatever holds your attention holds your power. The more you give away without intention, the more drained you feel without knowing why. It's not selfish to protect your energy. It's self-respect. You can't pour calm into others when you're running on empty. You can't give compassion when your spirit feels scattered. You can't make wise choices when your mind is exhausted from noise. There's strength in stepping back, not to avoid people or life, but to return to balance. The pause, the solitude, the quiet. These are not luxuries, they're necessities. They're how you recharge your emotional batteries. Start noticing what drains you. Maybe it's the constant need to respond. Maybe it's the conversations that go in circles. Maybe it's trying to fix people who don't want to change. Maybe it's saying yes when your heart is quietly begging for no. Whatever it is, pay attention. The moment you identify what drains your peace, you begin to reclaim it. Guarding your energy means learning that not everything requires your emotional participation. You can observe without absorbing. You can care without carrying. You can listen without losing yourself. It's okay to say, I can't hold this right now. It's okay to take a step back from people or situations that constantly pull you into chaos. It's okay to choose stillness over stimulation. Because peace isn't found in doing more. It's found in doing less of what drains you. The more you protect your energy, the more you begin to see how much noise you used to tolerate. You start realizing that not every notification deserves a reply. Not every emotion requires a response, and not every invitation needs an acceptance. You start to value your time, your space, your silence. You start to see rest not as laziness but as alignment. You start to feel stronger, not because life got easier, but because you stopped handing your peace to everything that called your name. People might not always understand your boundaries. Some will call you distant. Others might call you cold. But that's because they were used to your overextension, to you saying yes even when it cost you. Boundaries confuse people who benefited from your lack of them. Stay firm. You are not responsible for explaining your peace. You are responsible for protecting it. When you start living this way, life slows down. You start noticing small things again. The rhythm of your breath, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of silence. These simple moments refill you in ways the world never can. Guarding your energy doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring correctly. You learn that compassion doesn't mean self-abandonment. You learn that kindness without limits turns into exhaustion. And you learn that protecting your inner world is the only way to stay balanced in the outer one. Every time you choose peace over urgency, you grow. Every time you walk away from drama, you strengthen your spirit. Every time you rest when the world tells you to run, you heal. This is how you begin to lead a calm life in a loud world, not by escaping it, but by building enough inner quiet to handle its noise. Because when your energy is guarded, you stop reacting to every demand. You stop chasing every opinion. You stop bending to every pull. Instead, you move from clarity, not chaos. You begin to give from overflow, not depletion. So take a breath. Turn down the volume of the world. Step back from the noise and step closer to yourself. Guard your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And as you do, you'll notice something miraculous. Life won't stop being loud, but you will stop being shaken by it. The noise will still exist, but it will no longer own you. Because now, your peace doesn't depend on silence around you. It depends on the stillness within you. Chapter 8. Let go of control. Gain your peace. There's a quiet kind of exhaustion that comes from trying to control what was never yours to manage, how people treat you, what they think, what they feel, how they see you. It begins as a desire for fairness or respect, but slowly it turns into a heavy burden. You keep giving energy to things that don't belong in your hands, and without realizing it, you lose your peace in the process. You can guide, you can communicate, you can love, but you cannot control. That truth is hard to accept because the human heart wants certainty. It wants to know that if it gives kindness, it will receive it back. That if it's loyal, others will stay loyal too. But life doesn't work in those guarantees. People act from their own experiences, their own pain, their own level of awareness. No matter how carefully you move, you can't make anyone see your worth if they're not ready to. The need to control how others treat you is rooted in fear. The fear of being hurt, misunderstood, or unappreciated. But the more you try to manage other people's behavior, the more you lose sight of what you can actually influence. Your response, your choices, your energy. When you let go of control, you don't give up on standards. You simply stop begging for them. You stop trying to teach respect to those who haven't learned it, and instead, you start walking in a way that shows what respect looks like. You stop chasing understanding from people who don't want to listen and start surrounding yourself with those who do. The truth is, trying to control others keeps you in emotional debt. You spend energy you'll never get back trying to make others do what only they can decide. And every time you chase that control, you tie your peace to someone else's choices. But peace doesn't live there. Peace begins when you realize that how others treat you is their reflection, not your responsibility. It's a mirror of their inner world, not a measure of your worth. You can't force kindness from someone who hasn't healed their anger. You can't demand understanding from someone who's never listened to themselves. And you can't expect peace from people still at war with their own hearts. When you accept that truth, something powerful happens. You stop taking things personally. You begin to respond to others from clarity instead of pain. You learn to say, "That's not about me," and walk away with your dignity still intact. Letting go of control isn't about becoming passive, it's about becoming wise. It's knowing where your influence ends and where your peace begins. It's no longer trying to fix people who don't want to grow. It's allowing others to be who they are, while you stay true to who you're becoming. You'll notice that once you stop forcing, life flows easier. The same situations that once drained you no longer touch you the same way. You stop over-explaining, stop chasing closure, stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You begin to realize that closure isn't something people give you. It's something you give yourself by moving on. There's a calmness that comes when you finally stop trying to control others. You start caring differently, with compassion, not attachment. You start loving people for who they are, not for who you wish they'd be. You stop reacting to their moods and start protecting your peace like it's your most valuable possession, because it is. And it's in that calm, that surrender, that freedom returns. You find strength in letting things be what they are. You start to trust life again, not because everything goes your way, but because you finally stop fighting what's outside your control. Remember, you can't control what others do, but you can always choose who you become because of it. You can choose to be kind without being used. You can choose to forgive without allowing more harm. You can choose to stay soft in a world that tries to harden you. And each time you make that choice, you're taking your power back. People often mistake control for strength, but true strength is letting go. It's the ability to say, I can love you and still release you. I can care and still keep my peace. I can show up with an open heart without needing to manage how you respond. That's emotional freedom, to be in the world without being consumed by it, to give without losing yourself, to care deeply but remain centered. So when you feel that urge to control, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this mine to manage? If it isn't, let it go. Not out of defeat, but out of respect for your own balance. The more you practice this, the more peace becomes your default. Life doesn't stop being unpredictable, but you stop being pulled apart by it. You start to understand that letting go isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of peace. Let go of control. Let go of needing to be understood, to be right, to be validated. Let others live their lessons. You focus on yours. And as you do, you'll find that life feels lighter, your mind feels clearer, your heart feels freer. Because peace doesn't come from holding on tighter. It comes from finally learning to let go. Chapter 9. The Wisdom of Silence. There's a stillness within silence that most people never reach. It's the space beyond noise, beyond explanation, beyond defense, beyond the constant need to be heard. The world tells you to speak, to prove, to participate in every argument. But wisdom often whispers, be still. Silence is misunderstood. People think it means absence, absence of words, of action, of presence. But true silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of peace. It's the quiet knowing that not everything requires your voice, and not every situation deserves your reaction. We live in a world that celebrates volume. Whoever speaks the loudest seems to win. But the wise don't rush to fill silence, they listen to it. They know that silence reveals what noise hides. It's in those moments of quiet that you begin to hear what's really going on beneath the surface, not just in others, but in yourself. When you embrace silence, you start noticing how much energy you used to spend trying to control the narrative. You remember the countless moments when you explained yourself, argued your intentions, or tried to make people see your heart. And then you realize, silence could have protected you every time. Because silence doesn't mean weakness, it means mastery. It means you've learned that peace is more valuable than being right. It means you've grown beyond the need to respond to every misunderstanding. It means you're strong enough to let truth defend itself with time instead of words. There's a sacred strength in not reacting. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about channeling it. It's about knowing that when you hold your silence, you hold your energy. You choose calm over chaos. You choose focus over friction. Silence is also a mirror. When you stop speaking, you start observing. You begin to see who listens out of care and who listens out of curiosity. You start hearing the emotions behind people's words, the insecurity behind anger, the fear behind pride. You understand more by saying less. And as you practice silence, something shifts inside you. You stop fearing pauses in conversation. You stop rushing to fill every moment with sound. You begin to enjoy the weight of quiet, the way it slows time down, the way it softens your thoughts, the way it brings you home to yourself. That's where wisdom lives, not in endless talking, but in mindful listening, not in explaining, but in understanding. The wisest people aren't those who always have something to say. They're the ones who know when saying nothing says the most. There's a particular beauty in the silence that follows anger. In that brief pause, when you choose not to react, you plant the seed of peace. You tell the world, I value my calm more than this moment. And over time, that calm becomes your character. Silence also helps you protect your truth, because when you speak too soon, you reveal more than you need to. When you argue too quickly, you lose clarity. But when you stay silent long enough, you learn what truly matters and what doesn't. You start to see that not every situation deserves a response. Some moments are meant to pass, not to be processed aloud. And when you learn that, you free yourself from unnecessary battles. You stop being pulled into conversations that go nowhere. You stop trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding. Silence becomes your boundary. It says, I don't owe my peace to this chaos. It says, I won't shrink to meet someone else's noise. It says, I choose clarity over confusion. And in that space, something incredible happens. You grow. You become gentler with your words. You speak less but mean more. You listen longer and understand deeper. You realize that silence doesn't separate you from others. It connects you to yourself. There's also a healing silence, the kind that doesn't need an audience. It's the quiet you find early in the morning before the world wakes up. The stillness where your breath feels like prayer and your thoughts finally slow enough to feel real. In that silence, you don't have to be anyone. You just are. That's the wisdom of silence. To rest in your own presence without needing validation from the outside world. It's the reminder that not every truth needs to be spoken to be lived, and not every feeling needs to be explained to be real. So, when life gets noisy, step back. Turn off the sounds that pull you away from your center. Sit quietly, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Listen, not to respond, but to understand. Let the silence reveal what words can't. You'll find that the answers you were searching for in others were waiting for you in the quiet all along. And when you walk through life with that kind of silence, intentional, grounded, peaceful, people will feel it before you ever have to say a word. Because sometimes the loudest statement you can make is you're calm. And the wisest thing you can do is say nothing at all. Chapter 10. Leading the Self, Not the Storm. There will always be storms. Life was never meant to be a place without them. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will shift unexpectedly. Plans will fall apart. Emotions will rise and collide like waves against your chest. But peace isn't found in waiting for the storm to end. It's found in learning to stand steady in the middle of it. To lead yourself means to understand that control doesn't come from managing the weather around you. It comes from mastering the climate within you. The world may change. People may misunderstand. Moments may hurt. But how you respond is yours. Always yours. Every storm you've faced has tried to teach you one thing, that your emotions were never the enemy. Fear, anger, sadness, they were never meant to lead your life. They were signals, not directions. They came to inform you, not define you. But when you let emotions take the wheel, your life becomes reaction instead of direction. You move wherever the wind blows instead of where your purpose calls. Leading the self is about learning to pause before reacting, to breathe before breaking, to choose awareness over impulse. It's about saying, I feel this, but I decide what to do with it. That's strength. Not loud, not rigid, but steady. Every moment of emotional awareness is an act of leadership. When you stop and notice what's happening within you, the tightening in your chest, the quickening of your breath, the stories your mind begins to tell, you take command. You remind yourself, this is a feeling, not a fact. This is a wave, not the ocean. Because emotions aren't meant to be silenced, they're meant to be led. You guide them the way a lighthouse guides ships through darkness, not by stopping the waves, but by standing tall above them. Self-leadership means choosing response over reaction, presence over panic, purpose over pride. It's knowing that your peace is not negotiable, no matter what's happening outside of you. The world will always have noise, disagreements, opinions, uncertainty. You can't stop the waves, but you can anchor yourself in clarity. When you lead yourself, you stop waiting for calm conditions to feel grounded. You carry calm with you wherever you go. There's a quiet authority in that kind of leadership. It doesn't demand control over others. It commands respect through consistency. People can sense it when someone walks in calm instead of chaos. It's not arrogance, it's assurance. The kind that comes from knowing you've mastered your own reactions, not from needing to manage someone else's. Leading yourself means walking through conflict with composure. It means choosing integrity when it would be easier to lash out. It means keeping your word, your values, and your heart aligned, even when no one's watching. And that's not always easy. There will be days when your emotions pull hard, when anger feels justified, when silence feels impossible, when patience feels like weakness. But that's exactly when leadership matters most, when you stay rooted, even when your feelings try to pull you apart. You begin to realize that the true measure of strength is not how loudly you can fight, but how calmly you can stay aligned. Because the goal isn't to control everything, it's to remain yourself in the midst of everything. When you lead yourself, you stop chasing perfection and start building awareness. You stop waiting for peace to appear, and instead, you become the source of it. You start to notice that your calm changes things. Conversations soften, conflicts fade, situations resolve faster. Not because you forced anything, but because peace is powerful. It disarms chaos without ever needing to fight it. And over time, something beautiful happens. The storms that once terrified you begin to feel different. They still arrive, but you no longer panic when the sky darkens. You've seen what you can survive. You've learned what you can control. You've learned what to release. You begin to understand that storms don't come to destroy you. They come to remind you how strong your roots have become. Leading the self isn't about being unshakable. It's about knowing that even when you shake, you won't break. It's about trusting that the calm within you can outlast the chaos around you. You don't need to lead others to lead your life. Start with yourself. Lead your emotions. Lead your reactions. Lead your thoughts when they wander toward fear. Lead your energy when it starts to scatter. Lead your peace like it's the most precious thing you own, because it is. You will find that when you can lead yourself, the world changes. Not because it became easier, but because you became stronger. You begin to walk lighter. You begin to breathe deeper. You begin to feel like you belong to yourself again. And that's the quiet truth of self-leadership. You stop being led by what happens to you and start being guided by what's happening within you. So, when the next storm arrives, and it will, take a breath. Remember everything you've learned. Don't rush to calm the wind. Don't beg the sea to stop moving. Just anchor yourself. Stand tall. Lead yourself. Because peace isn't found at the end of the storm. It's found in knowing that, no matter how hard it rains, you'll always be the calm within it.